Good morning, everyone. You're all very welcome to episode 2 of Storm Technologies' 4-part Microsoft Teams webinar series. So my name is Colette Lynch and I'm the User Adoption Lead here at Storm. This morning, I, along with my colleagues Connell and Mikey, are going to highlight for you a number of Microsoft Teams tips and tricks. So during episode 1, we shared communication strategies to help your organisation stay connected during COVID-19. So today's session is going to be focused on showing you some useful tips and tricks to maximise collaboration on Microsoft Teams. But before I run through the agenda, just a couple of housekeeping items I want to cover first. So the functionality behind today's webinar is the Microsoft Teams live event. So that means that all attendees are muted, but we do welcome you to submit questions and we will have a Q&A session at the end. So there is a question icon in the top right-hand corner of your screen. So if you do have any questions, just post them there and then we will include those questions in our Q&A session at the end. So just a little bit about who is going to be speaking today. First of all, we have Connell. He's our Modern Workplace team lead, and he's going to share insights on how to set up your team's project channels for success. Then there's me, Colette Lynch, and I'm going to walk you through some useful document management features to help you get to grips with working with documents in Microsoft Teams. And Mikey, our account manager and technical solutions expert, is going to briefly outline an offer from Microsoft designed to get you up and running in Teams. So the agenda for the next 45 minutes are collaborative projects using Teams. That Connell is going to take you through that. Then I'm going to bring you through managing documents, and we're going to give you some tips for success with Teams. We'll have a Q&A session towards the end, and then Mikey will bring you through the secure teamwork assessment, and we'll show you how to get in touch. So now I'm going to hand over to Connell.
Thanks, Colette. I'm going to take the next few minutes to talk a bit about setting up Teams effectively for your projects. So Teams can be a great tool for working on your projects. You've got so many collaboration and communication tools that you can sync into the one place, that it really helps you to be able to keep track of everything going on in a project at any given time. And some of the main benefits of using Teams for projects, the first one there around keeping people informed. There's multiple communication channels available within Teams, whether you need to do an individual chat or a call with someone, or you want to have a team meeting within the project group. There's multiple communication channels, so it really gives the team the ability to keep everyone up to date and informed, and projects are going to have a lot better chance of success if the team is kept up to date and kept informed of what's going on with the project and deadlines and timelines, etc. It also includes a shared content space. So your Files tab, which is a document library within SharePoint where you can store your documents. And again, those documents then are available for whoever has access to that channel. And then you've got applications such as OneNote, which can be used really successfully for managing your meeting minutes. And we'll actually be covering that in a bit more detail on episode 3. So if you're interested in how to organize your meeting minutes well using OneNote, we will be covering that in the next episode. Task management tools are available as well within Teams, so that can help you to capture, track and assign your project tasks without your project and see how those tasks are going and whether the due dates on those tasks are being met. And another benefit then is there's a huge amount of third-party tools and integrations available within Teams. So maybe if you're not using some of the applications within the Office 365 suite, but you're using other ones, you can actually integrate them into your Teams then if they're involved with your projects. And it allows you just to create a single space that has all the applications and information that you need within Teams, rather than having people jumping in and out of different applications. So the information architecture underlying a team, when you create a new team, it creates an Office 365 group, and when that group is created, it creates a SharePoint site that's associated with it, a shared mailbox and calendar, a OneNote, a planner, and a Power BI workspace. So you have a lot of tools there: the SharePoint site for storing your documents, the shared mailbox and calendar for communications and for events, to be able to see events coming up in the shared calendar. You can use the OneNote for maybe your meeting minutes. Planner is a great tool for task management. And then you've got Power BI as well, where you can add in dashboards or any kind of reports that maybe are relevant to the project as well. But when you're creating your team, the team is really made up of channels. And within those channels, you have a way to structure your content. So you should be looking at your project or at your team and seeing how can I structure the content here so it's very clearly defined as what should be stored in each channel. By default, a general channel is created, and you can just use this. Technically, you could just use the general channel and put everything into it. But the problem with that is if you have a lot of different people working in a project and they're in different roles and there's just one single channel, then they're going to see all the noise related to other elements of the project that maybe don't apply to them. And if that's the case, there's a higher chance that they'll miss the items that are actually relevant to them. So by breaking out that project into different channels, whether it's by streams of work, or maybe it's the teams involved, or maybe you've got a project methodology that you use and you break it down by the different stages within that project methodology, you know then that people will know when they're looking for something where they should look in which channel. There is also private channels available, so this can be a great way to control access to certain information that maybe not everyone within the team should have access to. That could be things around resourcing or maybe financial information like budgets. So private channels can be really useful there. And the last item then is within those channels, you have tabs, and those tabs are a way for you to set up that channel with all the information that the people that are going to be using that channel need to work successfully within your team. And you can add different Office 365 applications into your tab, or you can add third-party applications. And if you think of what the people in that channel are going to need and set up those tabs, you can make it really easy for people to be able to find the information that they need and for it to be displayed there. So now I'm going to move on to showing you how to create a project template in Teams and a few tips and tricks as well to help you get the most out of working with projects in Teams. And we strongly recommend creating a project template for your teams, because it means that you can have a bit of consistency across your projects within your organization. And also it means that if you have a project space and there's a place for everything can then be put in its place. So I'm going to go to Teams now. And if I'm looking to create a new team that's going to be my project template going forward, the first thing I need to do is come down here to the bottom and select Create a Team, and click on the Create Team here as well. So because I'm creating a template, I'm going to build it from scratch. And I can set the permissions then, whether this is going to be available for everyone, available to anyone in the organization to join if they want to join, or I can keep it private. So I'm going to select private for the moment, and I'm going to call this the Storm Project Template. I can put in a description here to let people know that this is a template team, and please don't update it or make any changes to it because it's being used as a template. So I can put in any information I need in that description and then click on Create. And that's going to create that team. Now it tells me that it's being created, a nice message there, and I can add any members to the team if I need to add them. But because this is a template, I'm not going to do that at the moment. So I'm going to click skip on that. And you can see here, as I mentioned, it's created that general channel by default. And within that channel, you've got your posts tab, your files tab, and there's a wiki tab as well. And then there's a plus sign here that allows you to add additional tabs to it. So if this is my Storm project template, you can see it's actually moved it down to the bottom of my teams there. So if this was something I was going to be working on over the next few weeks, I could drag it up to the top just to make it nice and visible and clear that this is the teams that I'm working on at the moment and not getting lost at the bottom of the list there. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually just start creating a bit of a template, and the first thing I'm going to do is add a few channels in here. So clicking on the ellipsis for the Storm project template team, I can click on Add Channel, and I'm going to break up my project into, we'll say, the design team, and I'm going to keep the privacy set to standard. What that means is that anyone who has access to the team will have access to this channel as well. So that's going to add the channel into that template. So just taking a minute for that to come through there. So I'll just try that again, see if technical issue. Oh, it's come through there. So just took a minute there to come through, but I'm going to create a new channel as well here called Development. So this is the development team. Again, I'm going to keep the privacy as standard. And then I'm going to add another channel here, but this time I'm going to create a private channel. So we'll just say this is for the project budget and resource and information. And I want to keep this private because I don't want everyone to have access to this channel. If I click next on that, it will then prompt me to add in the members within the team of who should have access to this private channel. So again, I'm just going to skip that, but you can see here that there's a little lock icon next to that channel, which lets me notify or lets me see that it is actually a private channel. And when you're in the post tab for this channel, in the top right hand corner here, you can see this channel content is only accessible to team members. And if I click on the general, it tells me here that the team, it's open to the team. So you can quickly see within the post tab who, what if it's locked down or not. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to set up a few tabs. The general channel here is a great way of having all your kind of content at an overview for the project. So what you might add in here are things like a RAID log, the project timelines, other project tasks as a whole that you could add in here. So to do something like that, you can click on the Add tab here, and I can create a planner. And I'll just create a new plan, and I can call it Project Tasks, and click Save. So this is a planner where you can create tasks in here. So it's very simple to create a task. You just type in the name of a task. So we'll just call it the right functional spec. I can set the due date, so we can set the due date for today, and I can assign it to someone within the team and click on Add Task. And you can create these buckets or containers for each of the different tasks types and break them up how you want. And I'll show you an example of that in a few minutes. I could also come up here and click in to add a OneNote. So maybe I'm going to use the OneNote in the general channel to manage the meeting minutes within the project. And you can see that there's a default team notebook that's created with this team. So I'm just going to click Save on that one, which is going to create my OneNote in my general channel. So I could also add in things like my RAID log and other information that's kind of generic across the project. But if I came down to the design channel now and I want to put some information in here, if I go into the Files tab, I'm just going to quickly upload a couple of documents. So you can see here, I'm just going to drag and drop these onto the screen. So these are a few documents, we'll say, related to the design team that the design team are working on. To make these really visible to the team, what I could do here is I can select one of these items and make it a tab. So this product roadmap document is now up there as a tab, and anyone working within design team, they're able to access that and review it and edit it just within that tab without actually having to find it within the Files tab. Because even though there may only be 3 documents now, over time there could be folders and folders and folders of documents in there. And if you have very important documents that you want to highlight and give visibility to, you can just make them a tab. And it's very easy. You can select the document and click Make This a Tab, or you can use the ellipsis here and click Make This a Tab, which will do the same thing as well. And you can see that's going to embed that PowerPoint slide. So you can do that for all of your different channels to basically create that template and what tabs you need to add in there. And so I won't continue to do that with the rest of the channels here. I'll go down and show you a template that has been created earlier. So I've got a project template team here. And when I click on the general channel, you can see here there's a project plan that's been created in here already that has a design tasks tab, a development task tab, a launch task tab, and you've got the different tasks in here, and they're assigned to different people with the due dates. And when the due date passes, it marks the task date as red, so it's very visible to know that this task is over the due date and should be followed up on immediately. And you can see completed tasks as well just by expanding the little arrow down there. So that's what your project plan might look like, and it's very easy to move tasks around within the plan and add tasks in by just clicking Add Tasks. So it's a very useful tool. You can click on the charts to get more information around what the status, the overall status of those tasks are, the different buckets and how many tasks are in each one. And scrolling down here, you can see the priority on tasks and the members, who's got the tasks assigned to them. So that's all built in automatically when you use Planner. So there's some really useful tools for managing your tasks in there. And the schedule shows you a calendar with the due dates of each of those tasks as well. So from a project manager perspective, I can quickly see what tasks are coming up next and who to follow up with by this schedule calendar here. Another item you might have is your project timeline. So here I've just uploaded a project timeline for the project. If I go into the budget and resourcing, you can see here there's a document here that's holding credit card details. So it's just dummy information, but you can see why you might want to keep that locked down to specific people rather than open to the whole of the project team. In the design tab, then you can see that we've got a number of different documents, and they're all available across the top tabs here. And if I go into development, then you can see that there's a lot more tabs in here. So it is important when you're working with the tabs that you make sure that you don't put too many up here, because if you do, they get hidden in the drop down here, and it makes them less visible for your team to be able to access them quickly. So you can add a lot of tabs in there, but whether it makes sense or not is debatable, because if they can't find it easily or they have to go scrolling looking for it, it doesn't really make sense. So try to minimize those tabs to just the ones that are really important and make that a bit clearer. In the go-to-market plan channel here, I've actually created another plan which is specific to the tasks just for the marketing team. So although there's a planner for the full project with all the project tasks, inside the marketing team, they have their specific tasks here, and they've broken them up into pre-launch with some of the tasks that are being set up there, the launch tasks, and then post-launch tasks. So that's how they can track their individual tasks inside there. So if I'm looking to create a new team using that template so that I have a consistent approach to my projects going forward, I can come down here and click on Join or Create a Team. I can click Create Team, and this time I'm going to select Create from an existing Office 365 group or team. And if I select Team here, I'm now going to use that project template, the one that I created earlier, and I'm going to change the name of this to Storm Project. I can put in a description, I can select what the privacy on this team is going to be, and I can then select what do I want to copy over from my template. So do I want to bring over the tabs? It will automatically bring over the channels. Do I want to bring over the team settings? Do I want to bring over the apps? And do I want to bring over the members of the team, of the project as well? So I'm going to tick all of those items and click on Create. The one thing to note here is that the private channel that was created in that original template will not be created when you use the template. So the private channel is actually creating a separate SharePoint site to store that information, and it doesn't get included when you manually create your templates. So you can see here I can add in additional members if I need to. I'm going to skip that for now. I can see now I've got a new Storm project team that's been created with the 4 other channels that were created, and you can see it's pulled across the tabs. If I go into the other items, it's pulled across the documents and the tabs, and all the information has come across with the original tab as I was hoping for. So we'd strongly recommend that you use project templates for consistency. It can be done out of the box manually, just like I've shown there. However, it is possible to use a Teams creation provisioning engine to automatically create these teams, and that if you do have a provisioning engine set up, it is possible then to have the private channels created as part of that provisioning as well. So that can be very useful if you want to ensure that the consistency is done there. From the end user perspective, you can just have a form for them to fill out when they want a team, and when they fill out that form, then it will automatically set up the team with the team name and all that information and the members that are required there. The Teams provisioning engine can actually be a really useful tool as well to control a very real problem in Teams, which is team sprawl. So one of the big buzzwords around Teams at the moment is the governance of Teams, around not letting your Teams environment get out of control. And we've seen that with customers already, even though Teams is relatively new with a lot of organizations, that the Teams has already kind of lost control and that people have just been creating them. Sometimes they're creating a team when they should be creating a channel, because they haven't got a good understanding of the differences and why you would create one over the other. So we're actually going to be covering governance of teams in a bit more information or a bit more detail in episode 4. So if that's something that is of value to you or you're interested in seeing, please join us next week and we'll be discussing that in more detail. So hopefully that's given you a bit of a few tips and some help around how to use projects in teams a bit more consistently and how to put a structure in place that'll help you more success with your projects. Now I'm going to hand you over to Colette, who's going to go through managing documents within Teams.
Thanks, Connell. So I am going to bring you through some features in document management. I'm going to talk you through 8 different features. So first of all, we're going to just have a look at the Teams window and how you can access and manage your documents from within there. Then we'll just look at how you can post a file to a Teams channel when you want to draw attention to a file for your colleagues. We'll look at the whole concept of sharing so that you can share a link to a document with your colleague so that your colleague can edit it. And we'll look at co-authoring. So co-authoring basically means that multiple people can edit the same document at the same time. Then we'll have a look at checking out and checking back in a document and why you might do that. We'll look at version history so that we can go back and see previous iterations of a document. And I'm going to show you some shortcuts for creating links to your documents from within the desktop application. And finally, we'll look at synchronizing so that you can access your documents not only from the Teams window, but also from Windows Explorer as well. So let's go back into Teams. And I'm going to bring you in and show you this one. So I'm working in this user adoption team within which we have the general channel. So as Connell rightly pointed out, you've got all these tabs across the top, which will give you different elements within that particular channel. So the Files tab is where all of my documents are stored. And as Connell showed you, you can easily upload documents to here by dragging and dropping them from Windows Explorer, or I can simply click the Upload button here. So just a tip for you, if you are working within various different channels and you want to get back to documents that you worked on recently, you can always just come over and click on this Files tab here. And what this does is this just pulls together all of the documents that I've worked on recently. So it's a nice quick way for me to re-access those documents again. And another little button you might or might not be aware of, and that's just this little back button here in the top right corner, because sometimes people think when they want to go somewhere, they have to go back to the team and back to the channel and back to the tab. But I can just use the back button here, which will bring me back into the window I was in previously. So the next thing then is just opening up our documents. I mean, as you're probably aware, I know a lot of you are using Teams already. So when you do click the name of a document, what it opens in is the Teams view. And the Teams view, it's really like a watered down version of the desktop application. So this is a Word document, and now I'm seeing it in the Teams view. So when I come in here, I don't have all the functionality that I have within the desktop application. You can see across the top here, I've got these tabs. And if I just click to expand that, I can see the commands that are available to me. So as you probably see, that you won't have all of the functionality that you have within the desktop application. But from here, there's always the option to open in the desktop application. So let me just close out of there for a second. So sometimes we just want to bypass that because we know we want to work directly in the desktop application. So what we do is select our document and just come up to the toolbar here at the top where you see the open button. And you'll see that I have 3 options in terms of how I open this document. So I have Word Online, the Teams view that we just saw, and the desktop application. So really, Word Online and Teams are pretty much the same thing. They're both the watered down version of the desktop application. And sometimes at the beginning, people are confused as to why they have these additional online web apps when they're perfectly happy with the desktop application. And just remember, the reason we have these web apps is so that I can log on to my Teams account or my Office 365 account from any device, no matter where I am in the world. So even if that device doesn't have the desktop applications on it, I'm still going to be able to read and edit my documents. But the truth is, if you prefer working in the desktop application, then work in the desktop application. You don't have to use those online web apps if you don't want to. So if I just click to open in Word, you see that brings me now into Microsoft Word. And just a couple of subtle differences if you've not seen this before, but autosave is automatically on. So what's nice about this is if I start making changes to my document, notice the top of the screen there, it says saving. So it's automatically saving my changes. So what I'm going to do now is I want to draw attention to this particular document and I want the rest of my team to see it. So I'm going to go to my posts and I'm going to put in a new post and I'm going to share a link to that document. So I'll start a new conversation, put a subject line in, and then I'll attach a link. So attach, browse teams and channels, and it remembers the document I was just in. Click on that and share a link. Now, if I post this now, how will my team know something has been posted? Well, what they'll see is over in the channel will be in bold. The channel name itself will be in bold, so people will know that something additional has been posted there. But if I want to draw attention to particular individuals, then I'll mention them. So if I just put Connell's name in there, now Connell will get a notification and he'll know that something is there for him to review. Okay, so that's our Teams window. The next thing I'm going to do is we're just going to look at opening the document in the desktop application, sharing it and co-authoring. So the scenario that I'm going to use here is I have a monthly report for the month of March. I want to create a monthly report for the month of April. So I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I just want to take this old document and I want to create a copy and then update it. So I'm going to select it and open in Word. So as I mentioned before, autosave is on. Now autosave is great because it means we don't have to keep pressing the save button, which has been absolutely drummed into many of us. But one thing you need to remember here is that if I want to do a save as scenario, so I want to create an April monthly report, in the old world, what I might have done is opened an old document, modified it somewhat, and then done a save as. But now, because autosave is on, any changes I make are going to be made to this very document. So really, when you want to do a save as, you must do it straight away before you start making any changes. So I'll save a copy. Okay, and there's my folder that I've just been in. And I'm going to put the name April in here. Okay. So that brings me back and now I can see my new file name. So just another nice little feature that's been introduced now is that I can actually rename the file while I'm in it. Again, in the past, I would have had to close the file down and go and get it in Windows Explorer. Whereas now, if I want to make a change to that name, just come up to the top and click the arrow. And then in here, I can see my file name. And now I can change the name and press enter. So now I can work away on changing this document. So I'm just going to specify that it's for the month of April. And what I'd like now is Connell to come in and update his part of this report. So what I'm going to do is share the file with him. Okay, so put his name in here. Now I can put an optional message in as well that he'll see within the email he gets, but for now I'll just click to send. So what's going to happen now is Connell is going to get, oh, he's in already. So I can see in the top right hand corner that Connell has arrived into this document. So we can have multiple people in here. We can have quite a few people in editing a document at the same time. So oftentimes people ask the question, well, how can you ensure here that people don't overlap one another's changes? And the fact is that you can't, because as soon as I start working on a particular line, that paragraph is locked to me for editing. Now, when other people are in the document, I'll know that because I can see this little flag here. Now, because I know it's Connell, I know that flag represents him. But if you have multiple people in here, you might want to identify who's actually making these changes. So if I just go over and hover over the flag, when Connell stops typing. Yeah, so now you see I can see Connell's name there, so I know that it's him that's making these changes here. And likewise on Connell's screen, he will see a flag for where I'm typing. So we're able to see one another's changes in real time. Okay, so that's our co-authoring piece. So now we're finished with that document, and what we're going to do now is just close that down. So coming back to my team screen, with co-authoring, it's very helpful because obviously it allows multiple people to work on the same document at the same time. However, you might not always want that to happen. So for example, you know, if you open an Excel spreadsheet and it's got some complex formulas in there, you might not want anybody else to come in and start co-authoring with you. So what you should do if you want to open a document and lock it to yourself for editing is select it before you open it and check it out. Now in doing that, if I hover over the document name, you see this little red arrow which indicates to anyone else that the document is checked out to me for editing. So that means I can now open the document up and I can freely update it, and nobody will be aware of the changes that I've made until I close it down and check it back in. But let's say Connell comes along at this very moment and he wants to view this document as well. He will see that the document is checked out to me. And if he opens it, which he will be able to do, it'll just be in read-only mode. So when I'm finished with the document, I must remember to check it back in. Enter some comments. Let's just say I changed the date. And check it in. Okay. So the next feature I'm going to look at then is the version history. So the concept of version history is that we don't need to kind of create new documents all the time with the V1, V2, V3. We don't have to have multiple versions all sitting in the list here. What we do instead is whenever we open a document and we edit it and then close it back down, a new version is automatically created. I'm just going to refresh this so I can see my April. There's the document that I just created. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go in, I'm going to have a look at how do I see the version history for a document. So the way I see it is I open it in the desktop application. Okay, so you might recall we were up here earlier on at this little arrow at the top, and here's where I can look at my version history. So this version history panel then opens on the right hand side and I can see all of the previous versions, and we can also see the times there where the changes were made. So I'd like to open an old version of this document, so I just simply click to open version. And you'll always know you're in an old version of a document because first of all, the old version is read only. And secondly, this grey bar appears across the top of my screen with the words compare and restore. So just what are those options? So we'll start with restore. So what restore allows me to do is it allows me to take this old version and make it the latest version. So let's say you go into a document, you update it quite significantly, and then you realize you need to go back to a previous point in time. What's really nice is you can just open up that old version and then you can restore it. What you can also do in Word is you can do a comparison. Now this is only available in Word, unfortunately it's not available in Excel. I know a lot of people would like to have this in Excel as well. So when I click compare, what happens is I can see my revised document here on the right hand side and I can see the original document. And now in the center area what I can see is I can see where the changes were made and what those changes were. So if I look now on the left hand side, in the leftmost part of the margin, there's a line here which indicates to me that changes were made on this line. So I can see that something was inserted here, and on this line I can see that something was inserted here. So really the purpose of this window is just to give you the comparison view so you can basically see the differences between two documents. It's a brand new window, so changing something in here has no impact on any original documentation. So when I'm finished with it, I'll just click to close that down and I won't save it. Close down my old version, which brings me back to my original version. Okay, so that's version history. Now, the next thing I want to show you, it's just something that we find happens to a lot of our customers, and that is most people are in the habit of just simply starting a program and then they find that they want to save the document in Teams. So you might relate to this. So when I'm in my new blank document, I put my text in, and now it's at this point I realize I want to save my document in Teams. And sometimes people think they have to save it locally and then go into Teams and upload it, and that's not the case at all. You can save it directly from here. So what I'll do is if I go to my file and save as, you see here on the right hand side, Word remembers where I've been today. It remembers the path in Teams. So I can simply select the folder from here, and if I pin this folder, what that means is that it'll always be there. You see this pinned section here at the top? It means that folder will always be there, which means I can open files from here. I can save files directly in here. So click on that. And I'm just going to call this test document. Okay, and now I can see the file name up here and autosave has been enabled. So it's an important thing to realize because I do see a lot of people getting stuck there where they think that they have to actually save it locally. So the last feature I'm going to show you then is how to synchronize. looking at this Teams channel here, I have this list of files, and really I'd like to be able to access these through Windows Explorer as well. Sometimes in Teams, we have to kind of switch between various different windows to get to our files. So it can be really helpful to have them all available within Windows Explorer as well. To do that, what I do is I click my sync button here at the top. And it's very simple. My synchronization has already been completed, so I'm not going to go through it here. But if you do this yourself, you're just going to click next a few times, and then it'll say go to folder. So what does that look like? So here's my Windows Explorer view. And if you look over to the left-hand side, this is the demo environment that I'm working in today. And there's my user adoption general channel. So now I have access to all of these files from this view here as well. So this is not a copy of the file. This is basically the same file. So you can access them from here, or you can access them from within Teams. So it's important to recognize that if I delete something here, it will be deleted in Windows Explorer. And likewise, if I delete something from Windows Explorer, it will be removed from here. So be very careful and bear in mind that it's the same document that you're looking at. Now, if you wanted to stop the synchronization, for example, for whatever reason, once you've created a synchronization, if you look to your taskbar down at the bottom of the screen, you see these little blue clouds to represent the synchronizations with various different tenants. You might just have one. I happen to be linked up to a few, hence the 3 clouds here. This one here has a little circle on it because it's still in the process of synchronizing. So if I want to stop the synchronization, just click on the cloud, go to More, and then to Settings. And now what you'll be able to do is unlink this PC. And once you've done that, if you make changes to anything that's on your Windows Explorer, they won't be reflected in Teams. Okay, so what have we seen today? We've seen in the Teams window where you can access all the information for a channel, including your files. You've seen how to share files, and that can be done from within the desktop application. You've seen co-authoring, and we know that that allows multiple people to edit the same document at the same time. And just to say, co-authoring is available within Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and it's on OneNote as well, and it's available in both the online web apps and the desktop applications. If you don't want anybody else to come in and co-author with you, you must check the file out before you open it, and remember to check it back in when you're finished. Version history is available, and you get that from within the desktop application by going up to the title bar and clicking on the file name. If you want to draw attention to a file, what you can do is you can post a link to it in the Teams channel so that your colleagues know that they need to do something with it. And you can create shortcuts. You saw we looked at how we could pin folders from within the desktop application so that they're accessible then whenever you want to open documents or save documents into Teams. And finally, we saw that you could synchronize your Teams channel with your local PC, which allows you to access files from not only from your Teams window, but also from Windows Explorer. And remember, that's a really helpful one to have there if, for example, you have email attachments and you want to save an email attachment into Teams. If you synchronize with Windows Explorer, it just sits there as a regular folder and it makes that task much easier. Okay, so I'm going to hand over to Conal now, who is going to take you through the Q&A.
Thanks, Colette. Some great takeaways and insights there. So a lot of questions have come in. What we're going to do is my colleague Joe is going to read out the questions and he'll direct them to myself or Colette based on the content coming in.
Great, thank you, Conal. We actually got a lot of questions today, so we have about 18 questions. We will not have time to go through all of them today, but just make sure that we will reach out to you directly just to be able to reply to that. And if you have any other more questions, just feel free to reach out to us directly anyway. Okay, so to give some kind of order on this, I'll go through the most liked questions that we have in our chat. So Conal, the first question would be from Nicola. If you set up a private channel within a team, can people who are not added to the private channel see that it exists while not being able to access the channel, or will it only be visible to the people who have been added to the private channel?
That's a great question, and there's a lot of kind of confusion around the private channels and how they're set up like that. So how it works is that the members of the team will not be able to even see the private channel, but the owners of the team will be able to see it. But if they are not members of the private channel, they won't be able to see the content of the private channel. So it's quite a kind of trying to understand how it's set up. But if you're an owner of the team, you'll be able to see that it exists, but you won't be able to see the content unless you're also a member of that private channel as well. And the members of the original team won't be able to see the private channel. So hopefully that was clear.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. So another question from an anonymous. In terms of information governance, is there not a danger that storing files in Teams, SharePoint, OneDrive will lead to a loss of control over where that data is held? That there might be a lack of clarity over where documents are stored and that kind of things. Do you have any?
Yeah, I think so one of the benefits of it is that if you're using Teams is that you can integrate those other points, either OneDrive or SharePoint, into your Teams area. And if you use Teams then as your way to basically integrate Office 365, the content or the places where they should be storing the information is then visible to them in that place. So there are, I mean, as much as there may be multiple places to store the information, by using applications such as Teams, you're able to integrate them all together to be able to help reduce the possibilities that people are storing information in the wrong place.
Okay, thank you. Another question from Rebecca. If you create a team from an existing SharePoint site, does it inherit the document permissions you've assigned on a SharePoint site? Certain documents only visible to people they've been shared with, etc.
Yeah, so whatever permissions are actually, if the SharePoint site that underpins the Teams team, that the permissions are going to be inherited by that team. So if you have a folder in there that you've locked down to specific people, when you're using it through Teams, even though they may have access to the team, they won't have access to those documents. Now that was actually what you had to do previously before the private channels. So if you wanted to have, we'll say, the budget information, the resourcing information locked down from the team, you had to go into SharePoint and change the permissions on those folders. But the only problem with that is that if there is conversations in the posts or if there's other information going on within the team about that information, well, then the rest of the team will be able to see that information, which is why the private channels give you that additional functionality to have the conversations locked down as well and other documents locked down as well.
Very good, thank you. So conscious of time, I'll just do a couple of more questions and then we'll move on and we'll reach out to you with the answer of all the others anyway. Okay. So another question, interesting question from an anonymous. Can all the tasks be output somewhere to represent a sort of project plan and the Gantt chart?
Yeah, so there are ways of connecting Planner into project, and those integrations are kind of improving all the time from Microsoft as they're looking to see how it can all be integrated together. Another thing that you can do actually is if you have multiple projects as teams, you can actually create a SharePoint hub site to roll up all that information, tasks and documents and other information into that hub site, which will then give you an overview of all the different projects that you have going on. But you do have to connect in those teams that you have into that hub site.
Okay, very good. Just a last question from Anonymous. Can we subscribe to notifications for specific channels?
Yeah, so if you follow a channel, well, then you'll get the notifications on that through your email as well. So that's one thing. It is kind of, as much as it's a good tool, if you have a lot of channels and a lot of information, you may not want to be constantly bombarded. There is already visual cues that when a channel has a new post, the text of the channel goes bold. So you'll be able to see that there is something new in there without actually having to get a notification. But if you do want to have the notification, you can follow that channel.
Very good. Thank you very much, Conal and Colette, for this very informative session. We just give a couple of minutes now to Mikey Wilson that will just talk us about Microsoft Teams Secure Teamwork Assessment that Microsoft is providing at the moment. Hello, Mikey.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Colette and Conal, for some really useful insights and some tips I will be using going forward as well. So I would just like to speak for a minute or two about an assessment that Microsoft have put in place. This is fully funded by Microsoft and it's a 2-day engagement to help businesses deploy Microsoft Teams. Just going to give you a breakdown of the assessment. So the first step is that we will actually carry out the assessment. Then we will report back all the analysis of what we found and put together a plan with you about the deployment. Then we will actually do the deployment. Then for 4 weeks after that, we will give you help and guidance and answer any questions that you have with it. So some of the main benefits of doing this deployment are implementing Microsoft Teams quickly while still maintaining a tight security posture. Ensure business continuity by helping employees work remotely without feeling isolated. Expert recommendations on how to optimize Teams tailored to your business. And we would strongly recommend any business looking to deploy Teams in the near future to do this assessment. So if you would like any further information on how to avail of this offer, please feel free to reach out to me or any member of our sales team using the details provided at the end of this webinar. So Conal, back over to you.
Thanks, Mikey. So just before we end up, just want to thank everyone again for joining today's webinar. It's the second episode of our 4-part mini series, and we hope you can join us again next week for episodes 3 and 4. If you'd like to get in touch, the contact details for Storm will be displayed on the final slide. But thanks again, and mind yourselves. Bye.